welcome to this episode of The Nerd Tea. I am here with the lovely sisters Elizabeth and Helen. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much for having us. I'm Helen.
I'm Elizabeth. It's so great to be here.
I am so happy that you guys are here. I've been so excited to talk to you. We were talking a little bit earlier about how I had never been introduced to Why Choose, and we'll get more into that later, but I am so excited to talk to the people who introduced me to that whole section.
We're very proud. We love when we have the opportunity to sort of guide people into this genre, which can seem a little intimidating, but it's so much fun. Yeah, it's so much fun.
It immerses you way more into the fantasy aspect. You're like, yeah, they all want me. Yeah, of course they do.
Totally, every girl's dream, right?
Okay, so let's get into it. You two are the sister duo of the series Beasts of the Briar. There's 3 books out currently. Tell me a little bit about the series.
Yeah, so Beasts of the Briar is a fairy tale Beauty and the Beast retelling that is Why Choose. So we say our thesis statement is what if Belle had 4 beasts? And so it's a fantasy romance that starts out about a normal girl who wanders into the Fae realm and finds herself imprisoned in a castle and trapped with 4 Fae princes.
And okay, so as any fantasy, the names can get confusing. So let's do a quick little breakdown of who we are following. Who are our main characters? How do we pronounce their names? Let's just get through that right now.
For sure.
Perfect. So our main girl is Rosalina, often referred to as Rosie, and she's our main protagonist, a human girl trapped in the Fae realm. And then we have the 4 princes of Castle Tree, and they're all defined by seasons. So we have Keldarian, the winter prince, very grumpy. We have Dayton, the summer prince, and his full name is Daytonalise. And he's the summer prince, just flirty, easygoing. We have Farron, the autumn prince. He's a big cinnamon roll, and he's like Milo Thatch meets Peter Parker, and he's just the sweetest. And then we have Ezryn, the summer prince. The spring prince, that's right. Ezryn, the spring prince, and he's very mysterious. And we joke that Ezryn is what if the Mandalorian was a medieval knight? Because he can only reveal his face to his fated mate. So no one knows what he looks like in the first book.
Which is you wouldn't think that would be steamy, by the way. But
No.
it works. It works. I was like, how are they gonna? But I was like, oh, okay, well, that does something.
I forgot about.
I
forgot about a character, and if any of the readers heard this, they would be really mad that I forgot about him.
My favorite.
Yes. And lastly, we have our villain, our evil boy, who's terrible. Caspian. He's dark-haired, brooding, the Prince of Thorns. So
literally, I don't know if this is a little Easter egg that I did for myself to make me happy, but I'm wearing ear cuffs. So this one has a rose, and then this one is thorns.
Oh my god. Those are
perfect.
amazing. I need a pair. Those are gorgeous. I want pairs of those.
So cute. Honestly, any Renaissance fair.
Oh my
nice.
gosh, perfect.
We're gonna do some reader conventions in the summer,
Yeah.
so I need to figure out what to wear.
I know, I'm like, I need
I have
some
no
themed-
jewelry, so
Some themed stuff.
Literally this, I saw it and it had the corset and everything. I was like, wear everything rose.
Totally.
Okay, so our lovely, lovely characters, love them all. So now that we know our cast and we know our story, I wanted to start off with separating this interview sort of in sections to make it a little bit easier for our audience to follow along. This first section is going to be talking about the book specifically. I'm going to try to keep the questions without any spoilers, but I might get a little overexcited, and if so, I will just mark it for everyone. Don't worry.
Perfect.
You don't have to worry about it. I'll mark it if there's any spoilers. So, as you said,
I know, I'm so bad at, we've just been working on book 4, which isn't out now, so I'm like, don't say anything. I have to contain myself.
I was trying to talk to my friends about it. I was like, but all of the things that I could tell you, like, you don't understand.
You have to just read it.
There's a lot going on.
Read it. Like, I've been like trying to shove it in everyone's face. It's just like, read it so I can talk about it. Okay, so as you were telling me before, this is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and I want to know why Beauty and the Beast. Was that your favorite Disney story growing up, or was this just kind of something that inspired it?
Yeah, it was kind of a combination of things. We knew that we wanted to try writing a wide choose. This was our first wide choose we'd ever written. And we were like throwing basically every idea we had at the wall. Like what would be, we wanted like a really cool setting, a really like, sort of a hook that really immersed the reader right off the bat. And we threw out every idea you could possibly imagine until I just said, what about a Beauty and the Beast retelling with 4 beasts? And I think that just subconsciously came from we grew up with Disney, love of Disney, and definitely a love of Beauty and the Beast and Belle as a heroine. And I think a lot of us people in the bookish community really relate to Belle and her growth and her, her love of storytelling and all of that. So she seemed like a wonderful sort of starting point to have a heroine sort of grow from that. And then, of course, you add in the setting of the castle and how can we make the beast sort of fit a more romantic-y setting. It felt like it had a lot of elements that would really fit this fae romantasy genre. And that was sort of the jumping off point for that.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. And you guys did, obviously, tweaked the original story while still keeping up with, like, still being faithful to the original source. But it definitely worked, and the changes that you made to make it a completely new story so that people didn't think like they were just basically reading the story all over again.
Totally, yeah. I think we wanted
like some of that nostalgia going into it, but then getting to kind of relive your favorite stories as an adult with more adult themes and seeing them in a different light. Yeah, definitely more adult themes.
Certainly as the series has progressed, it's the Enchanted Vale has taken on like a life of its own now, but everything still harkens back to that nostalgia.
Yes, you're totally right. It can definitely feel that nostalgia in every book, even though the original story kind of like has expanded away from it. You talk about the adult themes, and I want to talk about how I was so pleasantly surprised how your protagonist is not a young, like, she's young, but she's not like a teenager or like just like she's not super young. In that regard, like she's not like a teenager, which we see a lot in romantasy. And I want to talk about the decision to make the protagonist a little bit older, which again you don't see a lot in romantasies.
Yeah, I think we had written a lot of YA before we went to this Why Choose book, and it was sort of refreshing to write a heroine closer to our age and just going through those different challenges of a woman in her age. Like she was kind of like seeing all of her friends move on and be successful and finding their place, and she's like, whoa, I'm 25, like
26.
Oh, she's 26. I'm thinking of like 25 years ago. She's 26 years old, and I think I remember when I was 26, I felt a lot of the things Rosie did. Like everyone else in my life has figured it out, and I still haven't. But I'm too old, and I think it's relatable to like see those things, I don't know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, with Rosie, we knew off the bat she wasn't going to be that sort of black cat heroine, that like secret assassin who's been training all of her life. We knew she was going to be more of this sort of fumbling her way through and finding her place. And yeah, like Helen said, I think we really wanted to ground her in someone who's sort of watching the world pass her by and feeling like she's stuck in place. And then what happens when, her whole world opens up and
how she can find herself, as a young adult woman.
Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely love that she's still very romantic, but it does have a bit of like more of a mature setting because she's a romantic, she's a dreamer, but she's still not, you know, she's seen the world, she, in the sense of she's seen her friends move on, she's experienced life in a lot of different ways in somebody her age, which I love. So you talked about the why choose decision, and you said that you wanted to write a why choose from the very beginning. So you knew going in that you were looking for a why choose. Was it always going to be, I don't know if this is a spoiler if I say 4 or possibly 5 love interests, you know?
We knew right off the bat from day one who Rosie will or will not end up with.
Yeah.
They were all crafted
From conception.
Yeah, from conception to no. There have been no surprises
Like,
in
oh,
that.
this character we wrote and is going to be a love interest.
Yeah, there's
like,
been no surprises in that way. Everybody was
either a love interest or not a love interest from the beginning.
yeah.
Love interest, yes.
Yeah.
Every single one, yes, of course. So you knew, but so did you know it was going to be, like you said, when you set out to write a white choose, you're like, I want to write a white choose that has 4 to 5. Or did you just kind of like, as you were deciding, oh, you know, it's Beauty and the Beast, and what if it was set in different like seasons? Was that the kind of what decided the number, I guess?
Yeah, I think when we decided Beauty and the Beast, then we started to start looking at the men, and we were like, well, what would be like a cool element that feels like whimsical? We really wanted like a whimsical vibe, or you know, something that felt like you're wandering into a fairyland.
Yeah.
And I think one of us threw out the idea of seasons because that feels I don't know, it feels magical to me, the turn of the seasons. And so that obviously gave us 4 right off the bat. And then we always knew that we wanted to have a will they, won't they villain. Like, so that gave us 5. And I think 5 was like a good number. Any more would have been a lot, but I think
with Why Choose, it's really good when the characters are very distinguishable from each other, because you don't even just have the male and the female Harem, you basically have 6 main characters, so it's really important that the reader can separate them right off the bat. So we did that by giving them really different personalities, and also just something the reader could ground themselves in. Oh, this guy's the Summer Prince, until they get to learn him better later in the book. Like, now people would know who Dayton is right off the bat. But when you're first reading and you've got all these names, all these new places in a fantasy world, the reader can easily remember, this guy's the Summer Prince. I know who he is. So, and not get them confused with each other.
The Winter Prince has long white hair. We wanted to give them like aesthetics that were easy to like hold on to in a way.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It definitely worked, and I will definitely chat more about that, because I think you guys did a very good job in, like you said, making sure that the audience was not confused, as we often are when we first read a fantasy. You're like, yeah, so you're just turning the pages, you're like, it'll make sense. That's like, we did a very good job in trickling in that information, so it didn't feel very overwhelming.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad to hear that, because it's always a thing in fantasy, because you as the author, you know everything that's going on.
Yeah,
so
sometimes.
Well, not me. I always forget, but Helen knows what's going on. So it's about trying to make it, you know, understandable for the audience without, you know, spoon feeding any information as well.
Yeah. And okay, so now I wanted to chat a little bit more about the book specifically. Again, I crafted these without major spoilers, so we'll see how well we do here.
I'll try too. We'll see how I do.
Well, this is going to be an interesting experiment. But I just wanted, so when I first picked up the story, I knew very little of what it is, other than the fact that it was a Beauty and the Beast retelling. But there's this one line literally in like the first page that I was like, oh, it's gonna be for me. You literally said, here's the book. You literally said, wait, no, I just forgot it. Oh my god, where the heck oh yeah. I've lived 1,000 lives. Too bad the only real one fucking sucks. And I was like, okay, that's how it's starting off. Literally the first paragraph. So I know you talked a little bit about how Belle is a reader, and so we can all connect to that. But I want to kind of delve a little bit more into the fact that our protagonist is the reader. She's very much us, like everything we want to happen to us. Like, please, somebody take me to a fey world, like, for the love of God. So I want to talk more about that decision to make your main character that reader.
Yeah, I think what we wanted was for Rosie to be really relatable. And I think as authors too, it was just so fun to write like, what would I be like in the Fae world? Because I think a lot of stories have these incredibly amazing badass heroines, and we wanted to do something a little different because I love to read about them. I love to pretend I'm them, but I honestly that would never be me in the Fae world. So we wanted to make Rosie a relatable heroine, and with the choice to make it like from modern day too was a bit instead of just setting it all in this mystery Feyland. We grew up loving kind of portal fantasies like Chronicles of Narnia, and you could where it's like you have your real world and then suddenly you're in this fantastical place, you know, and it's so different from how you grew up. And I think that's kind of fun to imagine because it's like as a reader then like you can't help but think like around this corner is this little rose bush a portal to the Fae world. So yeah, I think we wanted to make Rosie relatable. We drew a lot from ourselves, from our friends and stuff in her, and I think we just wanted it to be like, what if you yourself were plucked in the Fae world?
Yeah, now I look at every rose bush as like,
Yeah.
That's a goal.
can I like, I also want to, so obviously, Rosie is Belle in that regard. But you also have, and you also have the Beast, but you also have a Gaston character, which in this case is Lucas. And you guys tweaked the character. It still keeps that like Gaston-esque of being very arrogant, very sexist, you know, very dismissive over Belle other than her looks. But what I found interesting that you did is that Rosie starts off having had a relationship with Lucas. Not just like, that's the annoying guy that like wants me. No, like she also wanted him in a way. And we meet Rosie and she's very much resigned herself into accepting scraps as love. And you use, in my opinion, you use Lucas as a way to show her arc and growth. And I want to talk about utilizing that relationship to show Rosie's growth.
Yeah, we thought it was this sort of interesting idea to have the juxtaposition of, this terrifying Fae world where you're literally living with monsters, but realizing like the true enemy is back home, and that the villain of the story is the person who does make Rosie feel like she's worthless. And that's exactly what you said is exactly right. She accepts scraps of love from him. We were really interested in telling the story of someone learning to love themselves again. And I think, one of the huge overarching themes of all 7 books of Beasts of the Briar is going to be like love heals. And it's about Rosie's love heals the princes in a lot of ways, but also their love is healing for her too. And then also, really importantly, her own love is healing to herself and her self-love and learning how to do that. And I think, again, we wanted this to be a fantastical, whimsical story that kept its roots in realism, and just in the way that Rosie is relatable, in far as being bookish and being a bit timid and a bit awkward. It's also, I think a lot of us can have seen or experienced that feeling of someone else making us feel so big, so little. And yes, we wanted to really explore that in this whimsical setting.
And show like how the difference she is. Larry like doesn't speak her mind or anything back at home because she's got this constant fear that like Lucas has made her feel, and then as soon as she gets to the Fae world, it's just like she almost feels free, and you can kind of see that through her dialogue and how she acts.
We wanted to show like, even though she's imprisoned in this castle, like she blossoms there almost right away because there's something inside of her that feels free in the castle.
You mentioned that about how she's living with monsters, and then you would think that's who she was most afraid of. And that's part of what I loved about that story, is really showing that people, because Lucas is described as a beautiful to look at, and so I just love the idea of the outside doesn't necessarily have to match the inside, and the beasts who are terrifying and disgusting or whatever, they're the ones that have like more of the good heart and can really show that growth.
Totally, yeah. I think like playing with the dichotomy is really fun for us. In the same way, like in the first book, we see like Farron is probably the one who is of all the princes easiest to love. Like he's able to give the most love, and he's probably almost furthest along on his own healing journey. But he's the one who actually endangers Rosie, and his monster is the one that's most out of control. Or, you know, just not spoilery, but just touching on book 3, Ezryn is always seen as very calm and very in control of himself, but then we see what happens, that inside he's actually losing control. And so, yeah, I think playing with the two different halves or these warring ideas and characters is really interesting.
And I love that you mentioned Farron, because I do want to move on to
Michael!
Yeah. See, I have an accent, so I always forget it's woven and not woven. Like,
Well, we have a Canadian accent, so people will make fun of us all the time about the way we say things. Or I think Caldarian, a lot of people want to say it Caldarian, but I don't know, for me it's Caldarian is how I say it, but you can say it anyway.
Well, that's even, because I don't know why my brain just decided to ignore that I in Caldarian, and I was like, Calderon.
Yeah, that's cool too, though. That sounds cool.
That's his name. That's this man's name.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until my reread for this interview that I was like, has there always been an I? And
Yeah, that's just how it is. It's all good.
so I'm glad you said it, because I was like, woven. But you were talking about Farron, yes, and I thought it was super interesting how that the story really kicks off as far as like getting out of Castle Tree with Autumn and having Farron have just like Rosie was the main growth in book 1. This is really Farron's story, and I want to know what the decision was to go for that route with him first.
I think when we were planning it, it just came so naturally to move right into Farron's. I think it was because his beast is quite out of control, and that's a big problem that needs to be solved. The plot led itself to bringing all the characters to Autumn. We always kind of knew who would be last book. And then it was trying to figure out the order of the other books, and it just really, once we figured out Farron, the others flowed very naturally in how the plot went.
Yeah, like a little bit of it was also logistical in the sense, like we knew, like Helen said, like Farron had a really big problem to solve as far as his beast. So we knew Farron, it led really quickly in. But we also knew that we didn't want to have Farron and Dayton's books back to back, because their stories are often told like really closely together. So we didn't want to like tell all the story about them. Not that by the end of book 4 their story is done. There's much more to go. But we wanted to like Ezryn and Kel have a history, and then Dayton and Farron obviously have a history. So being able to sort of divvy that up a little bit. So yeah, it was natural storytelling with some logistics mixed in there.
That makes sense, and I did love that we got to go there, because he had that like sweet nature that I think mixed in with Rosie really well, and it was interesting just to see just how that expanded to everyone else who maybe thought that they would deal with their problem first, because it seemed like they would be able to deal with their problem
Totally,
first.
yeah. I like to think that Farron's a good influence on them, but who knows?
Once they start paying attention, I think they were very dismissive towards him at the beginning.
Absolutely, yeah.
One of the interesting themes that I also see that you guys use or utilize when telling your story, and it happens in this book with Farron, but it also happens later on. Farron is the character that's like the smart character of the you're talking about how the princes, you wanted to give them each individual characteristics for everything, and Farron is the one who wants the knowledge. He's the one that likes to read and all that, and we later find out in this book that that is a value that the Autumn realm itself values, not just Farron. And I wonder which came first when you were planning. Was it that Farron was this character and you decided, you know what, he learned that from his realm, or did you decide, you know what, Autumn kind of fits with smarts, and then went the other way?
That's a good question.
I think it all kind of was coming together like when we were planning the characters. So I think Farron probably came first, and then we like saw what Autumn was, and we're imagining the world. And we always thought kind of how the princes were affected the world. So I feel like the princes came first, and their worlds built around them.
Yeah.
And we found ways to make them all different and in sync with each other. For example, with like Woven by Gold. Woven by Gold, Forged by Malice. We really wanted the Spring Realm to have this two sides. We wanted it to be a very unique Spring Realm. So it's very full of like plants and beautiful flowers and things like that. But it's also very hard, like they're metal workers and forgers and stuff. So they live in this really harsh mountain, but it's full of beautiful flowers. So we wanted to have ways to make them unique, kind of like the characters have two parts, the realms have two parts in a way.
Another theme with Autumn that I love, besides just the knowledge, is the idea of Autumn is death, and that is a massive theme throughout this second book. And I love the idea that as the book progresses and as Farron grows, he realizes that death doesn't necessarily mean the end of all things. It also means the rebirth of things, or making way for the birth of new things. And I want to know about that exploration with Autumn, which is very, it's a very fitting sort of theme to go through. It's not just with Autumn itself, but with Farron as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, like Rosie, Farron has a lot of parallels with Rosie. In a lot of ways, they're the most similar out of the couples, in that he is also very doubting of himself. He's insecure, and he comes by that because he's had failures, that he feels like he's let people down, and he has this sort of fear of death and this negative connotation of it. And I think we wanted to explore again like this juxtaposition of the beauty of things that are often ugly, and just in the way that we can describe the ugly of things that are considered beautiful. And so, you know, for Farron to realize that, you know, death is a gift, and he does get challenged by that in the end of book 2 as well, again, and you know, that is something that he continues to struggle with in the series, and we'll see him struggle with that a lot in book 4 as well coming up. So this is a theme that Farron is still working on. So he ominous ominous but so just this notion that, you know, death can give way to life. I think it's a really beautiful notion that the seasons are cyclical, and that's something the Queen of the Vale who disappeared was supposed to represent, really, you know, was the cycle of things. And so Farron, you know, realizing this is part of the cycle, and, you know, this is actually a healing thing, I think was important for him on that part of his journey.
And you mentioned, you both just mentioned how the exploration of how the ugly things might be beautiful, the beautiful things might be ugly. So that is a great time to transition to Forged by Malice. Third book, I know, I planned this out so well. But this is, again, just like Rosie and Farron's focus in the first two, this is mainly the focus of Ezryn, who is the Prince of Spring. And like you were saying, Spring is outwardly very, very beautiful, and everything is gorgeous flowers, but it is a very harsh realm. Everything is very strict. They have a lot of very strict traditions, and it parallels Ezryn really well as well, with the fact that he's constantly constrained in his armor, but he has such beautiful gifts from Spring. And I want to know why, when you were coming up with that idea of what Spring was, why did it come to your mind, you know what, Spring is actually the harshest? You would think it would be some of the other ones, but Spring is very harsh.
I think you were the one who first put through that idea, I think.
Yeah, I think it was just to make it different and unique, and to try and think about, like, where was Ezryn raised and why is he the way he is. And we had just gone to Autumn, and you could see this like really like loving family Farron had, and they're more traditionally like medieval European there, and we just wanted something different for the Spring Realm, and kind of, yeah, just basically to show the way Ezryn is, why he is, and also to show like why he was that way to his brother Chiron, who is one of the series' main characters in a way. I won't say exactly, but he plays a huge role in Ezryn and everyone else's story. And it had to describe like how did they grow up, and like what was it like for them, and why is Ezryn this way, and why is he so into traditions, and also like his beautiful armor, like where did that come from? And we've mentioned before that they export like their steel and their weapons from Sprain, so
And I think, just to add on to that, I think also there is this interesting idea of spring as this beautiful, like, you think spring, you think flowers and meadows, but also, like, that dangerous side of spring, you start getting spring storms, you know, you get huge rainfalls, you know,
The pollen.
The pollen.
Kills me every year, so.
Right, I feel, this sort of eruption of life.
yeah.
And so I think that was an interesting to sort of lean into that as well.
Another thing that this book gave birth to was more of the POV of our villain, of Cass. This is really when he gets, because you have different POVs in all of the books. We get to hear from all of the princes and also Rosalina, but this is really the first one that it has a lot of POV from Cass. And I wonder how that sort of evolved the way that you were telling this story versus how you were telling the first two books.
So this one, we just decided we needed Cass. We had little teasers of him throughout the books, but in this one, he really had more to say, and a lot of the story is told in a unique way where you kind of see what the villains are up to without the heroes knowing what they're up to, and that harkens back to a lot of our favorite books growing up. I saw on your shelf behind you, Dune. But what I love about Dune is you see like the Harkonnens POV and you know what they're up to, even though the heroes don't. And I think that's really interesting. So we wanted to show the villain side without the heroes knowing. So the only way to do that was to have a POV of a villain, which is Cass. And he's a fan favorite. It was so much fun to. He's also so fun to write. We always fight over who gets to write the scenes. But yeah, I don't know if you like that.
Yeah, no, and it was time for Cass, you know.
I agree.
Cass, Cass's whole thing is his secrets. Like he's like, you know, he squirrels them away and he holds them very close to his chest, and that's like his currency is in secrets. And so we wanted to let the reader in on some of those secrets, as well as his sister, the Nightingale, his adopted sister, the Nightingale, becoming a main antagonist in the story. We really wanted to see what's she like when she's not, you know, right front and center trying to kill Rosie. What's she like behind the scenes? And you get to understand a bit of Cass's affections for her and why he protects her the way he does.
And it actually falls into another interesting something that you guys do a lot throughout the series, which is sometimes the heroes are somebody else's villains and somebody else's villains are somebody else's heroes, and we see this a lot. We see this, some examples are Farron and Cass during Cass's birthday with his gift, which I hated Farron for like a second, I'm not gonna lie.
I was really upset with Farron.
This little you also see this obviously in this book particular as when his brother, you see that a lot. And you definitely see this with Kel and Cass because you learn a little bit about their history. And I was actually thinking about it because it reminds me of like the Am I the Asshole post on Reddit.
Yeah.
I'm like, am I the asshole for? And then you're just like, yeah, no, everyone sucks. Yeah. And at the same time, no one's at fault almost. It's like everyone's at fault and at the same time, no one is. And I don't know if you can kind of expand a little bit on that dynamic that you kind of played there with all these characters.
I think like what we do is, I think the most interesting villains are people who don't think they're the villains, and that's what we've done with every single villain. is to really see why. And then when you get to see more of their POV, the reader starts to understand and be like, oh, I get it. But then you still get your heroes and why they hate them. And I think it's just so layered and complex, and we have a lot of fun with the secrets and what people know and what people don't know.
And I think, like, everyone's the asshole is true because, you know, Kildarian, Ezryn, Dayton, and Farron are, Cass, Rosie, all of them are not perfect characters by any means. The princes in particular, because, you know, the princes are obviously the heroes of the story, but they have made a lot of errors in their life. They've done a lot of things that have hurt their families and the people in their realms. And, you know, they may not be evil people at heart, but they have made selfish decisions or careless decisions that have led to things. And so we didn't want them to be, you know, your storybook perfect prince. They have to earn
flaws.
Yeah, they have to earn anything good that's coming their way.
And then when they do overcome those challenges, I think it like really resonates with the reader, and it feels really earned when they actually do something good, because you kind of suck.
You deserve that.
You actually are the asshole.
I would
We all
love
think
that.
Kel is the asshole in everything.
Yeah, Kel is for sure the asshole.
Just a little bit. We love that, but
Yeah. Totally.
I wanted to, before we move on to the next section, this is going to be the only part that is 100% spoilers, and I will mark it by time code so that people can skip. So this is the part. Skip if you have not read all 3 books that are out. But so I reread the books in order to prepare for this interview, and I actually finished Forged by Malice yesterday, and I got angry all over again, like extreme. I literally couldn't sleep. I was like, I'm so, like, I was shook. It like my flapper was gasted. Like I did, and so first, I guess I don't really have a question. I just want you to explain yourselves, like, without spoilers. But like, without spoilers for the 4th one, I mean. But like, how dare you?
There's a lot to be mad about in Forged, but I assume, are we talking about the Will-O-Wisps at the end?
Yes, we.
Okay.
I
Underestimated how angry the readers would be. We were like, oh yeah, this is gonna get them.
We're like, this is a cool.
But they're gonna be more excited about Cass and Kel kissing at the end.
Yeah.
But like, when we first, I think our first hints of how angry all the readers would be was when we first gave it to our beta readers. And like literally for like 3 days straight, the beta readers on the Facebook group were just constantly enraged. And I was like, but what about all this other stuff that happened?
Did you like it? Did you like it?
And then now I cannot post a single TikTok or post on social media with at least 1 or 2 comments being like, let Dayton and Rosie be together. Let Dayton and Rosie be together. But unfortunately, he's faded to Renly. So.
He is.
It's a twist, you know.
He's
we'll have to see.
faded mates with Renly. So
Here's the thing with that, because there's a theory. I don't know if you've heard the theories. I kind of had a theory, and then I looked online because I was like, I can't be the only one with this theory. Somebody has to have this theory, and I found other people with a theory. So I'm going to present you the theory. Do not confirm or deny.
Okay.
But this is the theory.
Okay.
You should cover your face.
I know.
You have really bad.
Oh God. Okay. Yeah. Like literally, do you have a mask? Like.
Okay. I'm just gonna smile slightly regardless.
Okay. Good. Yeah. I'm gonna assume that it's just like the awkward smile when you know something that you're. Yeah. Okay.
Totally.
So,
I'll just have that on already.
okay. Good. Because here's the theory. It's that first of all, there's a lot of theories, but that the Renly looks a lot like Rosalina for a reason, first of all. But second, she is actually another character. They're both one character, but people don't know that. And especially Dayton doesn't know that. And that this is like, and somebody phrased it perfectly. This is like a Little Mermaid thing where like it's Vanessa using Ariel's voice type of thing. So that's the theory that I'm working with. That Renly is Vanessa using Ariel's voice, and they're using the flowers as a way to trick them, and that's the theory.
I have seen that theory. I've seen a lot of theories. People post them in our spoiler group or our Facebook group. Some of them are on point. Some of them are close.
Yeah.
Some of them are
Far off.
I appreciate any theories. I will say what we've revealed before is So Bonded by Thorns has inspiration from Beauty and the Beast. Woven by Gold, we took a lot of inspiration from like classic high fantasy, like Lord of the Rings and the Chronicles of Narnia. Like those were our like feelings of that, and like also Scotland. Woven by Gold, or sorry, Forged by Malice. Kind of, it felt like almost Star Wars-ish, and it's like big epicness and family drama. Brother v. brother.
Yeah.
And then what we're saying for Broken by Daylight is Little Mermaid and Pirates of the Caribbean are and Gladiators. So it's like a threefold. And it sounds like it won't work, but it does. That's basically the inspo for that. So we've got Little Mermaid, Pirates of the Caribbean, and Gladiators for book 4. And that's all I'll say about your theory, I guess.
Interesting.
Unless you have anything to add.
I also see a little bit of Hercules in Dayton, but I don't know if that's like...
There is, for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely got that vibe.
I was just
But-
like...
I'll just tell the reader, I'm the worst at spoilers, so I'm going to be very careful. I'll tell the readers. Helen is like the kind of person who, like, within watching, she'll watch like 10 minutes of a movie and then lean over to me and be like, it's going to end like this. And she can predict the most insane plot twists, like, so quickly. And I think her secret skill is she loves to weave things in from, like, very early on. And so I will say, there's interesting things to be revealed in book 4 that are woven throughout all 3 books already.
So if you do a close reread, you will find hints for book 4. Like, even like of the smallest details. So I'll give you guys, because we're still talking spoilers, one little thing we did in book 1 to allude that Cass and Kel were romantic is when Dayton is telling Rosie about Kel's great love, he puts his hand on the thorns, and that's just like a little nod. So there's like really, really subtle things in there.
Interesting.
There is stuff in there that will help readers guess some stuff or have theories for book 4, I think.
Well, great. Now I have to go reread it one more time and like really highlight like when is.
We will say for anyone who wants like a new experience reading it, I'll just plug this, I guess. Is Harper Voyager in the UK is putting out brand new audiobooks in July, and they have a different narrator for each character, and I think that's going to be really interesting. I absolutely love the narrators we have for the US version, and I think it's so exciting to have like now 2 versions, but yeah, if you've like read it in paper, like the audiobook is like a good way to like reread it as well.
That is true. And maybe like listening to it, you're kind of like, wait, like you kind of catch.
What's going on?
I'm also just a huge fan of audiobooks because I can listen to them like when I do my like laundry and my dishes and stuff. So
Or like the commute to drive.
yes.
Totally.
Like that's the thing.
That's the time.
That's the time. Okay, but that was the only section with spoilers.
Okay.
I don't know what to think about that. But we're gonna move on because otherwise I will continue to like, okay, so we're gonna move on real quick to. Oh my God, I'm taking up so much of your time. You guys are so interesting. So much of your time. I want to move on to the writing because there's so much of this writing style that, for the 2 of you that I absolutely love, and I wanna. This section is dedicated to like our aspiring writers, really. The first thing is, we talked about it earlier, you guys juggle a lot of POVs. I want to know, A, what the decision was about that, but also how do you manage to make sure at this point that we can hear the difference in POVs? Even though you have the name, you can still hear it without that. You know whose thoughts you're in.
It definitely, I think it is actually easier now because we've written the characters so much at this point. And we both write all the characters, so sometimes one of us will take a little bit more of one character, but we do both touch on each character. And I think, from the get-go, that was super vital to us that they need to have very distinct, not only speech patterns, but also ways that they look at things.
Yeah.
So, we knew for sure Rosie is very modern speech, except when she's trying to bolster herself, and
Yeah.
so sometimes it's fun to give her like try and talk like the other ones are talking when she's trying to be confident. But she is definitely the one who is probably most in tune with her emotions. So she's easiest to just go into her head and say exactly what she's thinking. She thinks very fast. She thinks a lot. And Farron is similar. Farron is a little bit more formal. He likes to view things a little bit more analytically, and I think he's also more in tune with people's connections with each other and what they look like.
Dayton's fun because he's always doing snarky comments about the others in his head.
Yeah.
And he speaks very informally most of the time, but then sometimes he does speak formally, and you can say, oh yeah, he is trained to be a prince. He's just choosing to be an asshole. That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
And you can see with Dayton too little glimpses of like his inner torment, even though he projects out. And he sometimes does that in his POVs. He'll be projecting like in his head. It's interesting.
As we always say, is very exasperated with the world.
Yeah.
He's tired.
Yeah, he's the one that's telling the kids to get off his lawn.
Exactly.
He's like,
He just wants to be sitting in his chair,
Yeah.
you know. So he's always a little like less patience with the others and wants like, let's get going, guys, come on.
And he's tricky because when we write his POVs, sometimes we get edits like, oh, like what's he feeling? But in our heads, like he doesn't know what he's feeling.
He's very like disconnected.
Yeah.
Except we sometimes joke like Ez is ezzing.
Yeah.
He'll go through these times where he broods. Like he's a master brooder,
Yes.
you know, like he loves to just like think about the darkness of
Yeah,
himself.
literally.
And, you know, he's like kind of emo in that sense. And talking about that, Kel also loves to Kel. Kel is Kellen all the time. He's tormented in his thoughts, and you know everything is pain when it comes to Rosalina.
He's very dramatic.
Yeah, he's a little bit in his thoughts, and then I think he's a bit colder outward to everybody. But
then,
less so with Cass and Rosie, maybe.
And Cass is super fun because he's so snarky, and you see that in his POV. And Cass is sometimes a little tricky because he knows secrets that the reader doesn't know. So when he's thinking them, you have to just kind of do it in a clever way where he's not revealing it, but you know he knows. And we struggle with that a little bit sometimes, but it's really fun to try and find ways to do that in a clever way.
Yeah, the word choice has to be very, I think with Cass, you have to be very, very deliberate while writing him so as not to let things on yet. But we love to give so many hints, and sometimes we love to like almost be explicit without being explicit, so the reader really feels like, okay, I'm putting it together and I'm ready to see how the characters are going to put it together.
And that's something that you guys do really, really well. It's kind of trickling in that feeling of like you're catching on to like the edge of a secret. And I'm guessing that takes a lot of edits. Or no?
I don't know.
I think that is, I mean, sometimes it's...
Sometimes you have to go back and remember, like, do they actually know this or not?
Yeah.
Or everything too obvious here, I think is...
Yeah, I think we do sort of battle with, is this too obvious? And we rely a lot on, like, our beta readers and things to sort of temper that. But once we know, it's pretty easy to sort of, like, slide it in or cut it out if needed.
Yeah. So would you say, I was going to ask which of the POVs is easier or harder to write?
I mean, I like to write everybody. I think Rosie is the easiest for sure, because she's just sort of a stream of consciousness in a lot of ways. You know, she feels things very genuinely, and she doesn't have, and Rosie has no secrets whatsoever.
Yeah, she has no secrets.
Everything is an open book with Rosie. So, you know, that makes it easier compared to even Kel or Ezryn, who may not want to be sharing what they're feeling.
Yeah, they're, I think, the hardest. I don't find Dayton that hard. I wrote a lot of Dayton for book 5 or book 4. And now I know him very well. And he's really fun to write. Cass is really fun, but you always feel a bit of pressure because he doesn't necessarily always get as many POVs as the others. So you're like, okay, this has to be good.
And Farron, I think, like, he's often used to, like, convey a lot of information.
Oh, yeah.
Because he just knows a lot, you know. And so often Farron is a POV for when we're doing, like, world building or lore.
Which is kind of tricky.
So, yeah, that's always a little bit sometimes tricky to figure out how to get that in an interesting way.
Yeah, so that it doesn't feel like info
You've
dumping.
been dumped
Yeah.
on. Exactly, yeah.
I'm interested because again, you are keeping track of 6 main characters, but also you're keeping track sort of through their eyes about what a bunch of other characters are doing, but also you created this extremely full world. Each realm has their own traditions, their own lore, their own dressing style, their own like strengths and weaknesses. How was that planning process? How do you keep track of everything that's going on?
It's a lot.
It's
We
a
have
lot.
like one giant messy Word doc, and we do get confused
Okay.
sometimes.
We do.
I think we're making we have a list of a timeline coming up we're going to be making for future books. And
Yeah, I think so our editor has suggested for book 4, hopefully this will happen, I'm not sure, but a chronology, so that will be like a little glossary of important terms, because just to help the reader, remember all the important events that have happened in the history of the Enchanted Vale.
Yeah, it wasn't so hard in book 1, but as we're now getting to book 4 and then looking into planning book 5, like, it's a lot of world. So yeah, we have our Word docs, and I would have liked if we had it a bit more clean from the beginning, but we have all the info there somewhere.
In one Word doc or another, it's
Yeah.
there.
So was it all sort of fleshed out before you started writing book 1, or have you sort of had a vague idea and then fleshed it out? Because you
A
gave a lot
lot
of hints. Like,
Yeah, a lot of it was fleshed out, especially like Keldarian and Caspian's backstory. We definitely needed to know their history.
And we always knew from the beginning, like, where the characters will start and where all they will end. Like, we've known the ending from the very beginning. But I think the details of the worlds we did per each book.
Yeah, so
Each
yeah.
realm.
Yeah, the details of the realms I think came more before each book, where the giant sort of world building was a little bit earlier on, but we definitely add to it each time we sit down and do. Before we write any book, we sit down for like a week and just do
World building and
world
plot
building,
building and
plot, sort of.
to figure out, because it's
Yeah.
like, well, we couldn't write kind of book 4 without knowing how book 6 is going to end, because like there's threads from book 6 in book 4, so we basically know how the entire series is going to end and have woven things into that. But
so do you, because I've seen a lot of ways that authors plan. Is it one of those things where you kind of have, I don't know, flashcards of like, this is the plot, this is what this character's doing, this is what this character's doing? Is that kind of how you guys make sure to keep everything cohesive and flowing?
I wish we had a more cohesive system, but honestly, we use a Word doc with bullet points and tables, and
Yeah.
like
of like, this
It's-
is all the bullet points.
Yeah.
and then sometimes the
And then
bullet
vibes.
points are like crossed out, and like
Yeah.
literally we do have one that's like vibes of the book.
Yeah.
Like, what do we want this to feel like? What do we want this to, what we call it, our wish list. Like, what do we want to for sure see happen in the next few books,
And what like revelation or reveals need to happen that we've been teasing.
Yeah, so it's-
like Woven had a ton of reveals.
Yeah.
It's really a bunch of lists. It's
Okay.
pretty much, and you know what? I think honestly, at some point, I think even we're plotting a new book now for a different series, and I think this doc is cleaner and better than
You just
this doc.
you
so,
learn each time, like,
yeah,
because it was hard. Like, well, we didn't want to make it super. We weren't sure anyone would buy this book 1, even though, so we wanted to know how it would end, but
we weren't sure we were going to have the opportunity to write 7 books, let alone a second book. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that's something that would be good to continue our skills on.
And you guys, you talked a little bit about your process and your writing. So there's 2 of you, and I wonder if that sort of changes how you approach writing. You said that you both write both characters, but are you like in the same room when you're writing? Is it one of those like sending Google Docs to each other? Like, how do you balance making sure that you're both satisfied, your ideas are both heard, but you're still continuing to tell a story?
Totally. Well, we've been writing since we were little kids, so it's very second nature to us, like writing together, that is. So we have like joint Word docs that we both write on, like just Microsoft Word. And basically we plot the entire book together, usually walking or in the same room using a massive whiteboard. And then we transfer it to, again, a Microsoft Word doc.
where we have the scenes laid out in a great detail.
Yeah, and we'll do that all together. We'll discuss the scenes. We'll plot them like point by point. We do we're very, very into outlining and all of that. And then once we have the scenes of the book that we're, pretty sure we're going to have, we'll divvy them up. So, 50% go to Helen, 50% go to me. And usually instead of by character, we'll do it like by arc, like,
Like
little section of the
yeah.
book.
Okay.
So, like, maybe I'll do the first 5 chapters of the book because that'll get us to a certain point where the plot sort of shifts. And then Helen will take the next 10 chapters because that sort of gets them to a next point. And then I'll take, sort of like that style. So that way the scenes are consistent. And we like to touch on all the characters.
And then we'll edit each other's work and add lines and paragraphs or delete lines and paragraphs back and forth.
Yeah, and then, we'll swap, or I guess we don't swap. We'll just open the document and edit the whole thing each separately. So, and we can do this once we get to the writing stage. We do like to work together because I feel like it's easier to stay focused and on task when someone's like,
there with
also
you,
working.
Yeah.
But we can also do that separately, which is convenient as well.
There are some things we have to do together and some things we can just do in our own home.
Kind of in line with writing things together, I want to know, how do you approach writing the intimate scenes? Like, what techniques do you use to balance that sensuality and that sexiness, but also continue with the storyline? And in that vein, how do you make sure that, even though this is a book that's very sexy, has a lot of sex scenes, a lot of graphic sex scenes, it doesn't feel like, and there's because there's 5 of them, it doesn't ever feel like there's one more important than the other. So you've managed to do good storytelling and connect with all these characters, but still keep it very sexy and sensual. And I want to know how you approach that.
Yeah, it's kind of tricky because you want to make sure that they each have their own, and I think they each get something different from Rosalina and how she heals them, and they are all giving a different thing to Rosalina in a way where, whether it's healing her, helping her feel brave, relating to her, she's getting like a different piece of love from all of them. And I do think we never want to just throw in a sex scene just to throw it in. I think it's always sort of furthering the plot or furthering like the different character dynamics.
Totally, yeah. We definitely want, it to feel, again, like talking about earning things, we want to feel like it's earned and that it makes sense. And, and this is definitely a place where our editor helps us a ton because sometimes, when you're so deep in the story, it's hard to tell, okay, can we take a break? Can we have an intimate moment here? And so she's actually encouraged us to take more of those breaks with book 4 to like, it's
right.
And she, and she, there's quite a lot going on. And because she has more of a bird's eye view of it, she can say, it fits here. You have space here to do this. You can slow down here. You can expand this moment. So definitely, like, working with having that third person is super important to helping us, navigate that. It's because it is tricky. But yeah, overall, we'd never want to write a sex scene for a sex scene. We want it, not that there's anything wrong with that, but at the point where we now have 6 characters, it has to have to further some sort of dynamic because there's just no room otherwise. And so, yeah, we try and be very intentional about it while, still having a lot of fun with it, too.
And this actually leads us straight into the little last section of the interview, which is, like, the bookish world in general. Because you did start off as indie authors, and now you are hybrid authors. And I want to know, first, what was the decision of going into first being an indie author and now transitioning to a hybrid, and what are the pros and cons that you've seen for your writing being that indie author and now having that publisher, that editor?
Yeah, I think we wanted to do indie simply because we had been trying to be traditionally published for like 10 years beforehand, and our books had gotten really, really close. We had actually done a few on a small line as well, like some sports romance ones, but we had never been like fully under another pen name traditionally published. And we had written like the book of our heart. It was a YA fantasy, and we loved it. We spent years on it, and it went on submission, and it got close, but it never sold, and we were like devastated.
Yeah.
So, and like we were very, very, very sad. And then we wrote another series that we indie published, and it kind of got like a small following of very, very passionate readers, and the love was amazing, but it wasn't enough for us to like work on it full time or anything like that. But we saw the power, I think, of indie publishing and how readers, especially on Book Talk and Bookstagram, were like embracing indie authors, which was so incredible.
Which is so different from several years ago when
it wasn't like
this bad
stigmatizing, which it never should have been, right?
Yeah.
But people, because like TikTok and Instagram are now like just chatting with your friends, these book recs are like, yeah, these books are really good. Like and then Kindle Unlimited obviously is very helpful for readers being able to take a chance on new authors. So
yeah, absolutely. So that was sort of, I think, really the welcoming nature of the bookish community was what gave us the push into indie.
Yeah, not just like the readers, but also like other indie authors are so kind and helpful in sharing like how they did it too, like
absolutely.
Tips.
And so for us, what happened is we got approached by a UK publisher, which led us after the success of Bonded by Thorns, which led us to reaching out to find an agent, and we met and were signed by a really incredible agent who we're really, really blessed to be working with. And she asked us about our goals, and she also has on her client list a lot of other hybrid authors as well. And we knew that we had the opportunity to pursue getting Bonded by Thorns published by a UK publisher, and that was really important because we didn't have a huge a huge reach in the UK or a huge reach in Europe. And we thought, well, this is an opportunity for us to reach so many more readers this way, and in so many different ways. If you're in the are you in Europe? Is that right?
No, I'm in the U.S.
You're in the U.S. Okay.
Unfortunately.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But shipping to the Europe is insane.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And so, all of this, or trying to find copies, all of these things are so hard.
Yeah, and expensive, I'm guessing.
Yeah. And so, that's why we thought, it opens up a lot more opportunities in by having a UK publisher.
Yeah, and the publisher was very, very excited about the story, and we thought, you know what, this is pretty crazy. Like, who would have imagined, like 5 years ago, HarperCollins is going to take a chance on a reverse harem romantasy book, right? So it's kind of crazy that it's now coming out and it's being taken seriously. Like, women's literature written by women, romance is being taken seriously by these publishers. Like, obviously it was before, but like that spicy genre, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's very, very cool, and we thought this is such a good opportunity. We can't say no. We spoke to the editor, and she was very, very passionate about the story. She knew all the characters, and we thought, yeah, this is just, it's so fun. And they're doing, like, we have the UK copy.
I saw.
And it's
They're
just
so
it's
beautiful.
so beautiful,
They're
and they made
so
massive.
beautiful.
There's just things like we couldn't do on our own. So I think that's the pro of it.
Yeah.
I guess the con is, losing a little bit of
Independent,
but they're so, like, it's always been our story and stuff.
Yeah,
so
I think
I can't say any cons yet.
we're really lucky that we have a great professional team with us. Our editor, we have a really amazing editor. I think that's a huge pro. Working with her, we were able to go back and touch up Bonded by Thorns, Woven by Gold, and so she was able to bring out many of the things in it that we wanted to convey, and again to have that sort of third person into our cycle here to really help the Forged by Malice and now Broken by Daylight to really shine. And the team's been really great, so we're enjoying it, and we do hope that we can continue to have opportunities as hybrid authors, because there are so many benefits to both paths, and it's very individualistic of what works best for
each author.
And you mentioned it a little bit. I think social media and that rise of social media, because I know you guys are in it a lot. That's actually how I found TikTok. Decided that I already liked your books and just kept sending them to me, and I don't even know I don't know what's happening. And I was like, I don't even know why choose. What do you keep sending this to me? And
What is this?
I was like, fine. You want me to read it? Fine. I was like,
Here I go.
but I think that it's a way with a lot of things, how you were saying, and I think that there might be a change in the industry in a lot of things, in the fact that indie authors now have that chance, in the fact that those women told stories are being more respected. They're not like the dirty little secrets where the books were like this big so you could read it in secret. Where the idea of spice is growing, and it again also not seen like that dirty little secret. And
Yeah.
you guys are
Totally,
clearly
absolutely.
examples of that change in the industry.
Absolutely.
I love that. I love that like women can talk about the type of books they read, and it's like celebrated and not like made fun of, you know? And it's like 'cause they have this own like community on like book talk and
Absolutely.
Instagram.
And I think, there's still ground to go. We're fighting the stigma, I'm sure you've seen it on TikTok where men choose to decide to judge romance, and romance will probably always have that uphill battle, but I love that we're owning it, and to get, like we said earlier in the podcast, getting to welcome people into this new genre that maybe no one would have picked up before is such an exciting and such an honor.
And just that being said, like, there's like so many also. There are some great men in this community as well. We've been on like some podcasts and like Instagram lives and stuff with them too. So like, obviously, yes, there are some great men in this community too, just to add.
Yeah, but I think you're right that it is exciting that it's not something to hide on. It's not, seen as like the dumber. It's not real.
Yeah.
It's not,
Totally.
like not real you're not really reading like
Exactly.
The real book,
Yeah, like okay. And then some like last little fun questions. These will probably just be like real quick fun, just because I'm curious. First of all, you've mentioned a little bit, but what are some books that maybe inspired this book a little bit, the series?
Ooh,
You kind of mentioned Dune a little bit.
Yeah, I think like also like not to say like Twilight, but we wanted something that was really fun and juicy and easy to read and devour, and I wanted to give that feeling that I had like when I read that when I was like 13 years old, like to an adult audience, something just that's so fun to sink your teeth in and explore all these new characters, I would say.
Absolutely. And I think, our love of fantasy stemmed all the way back from Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. That, and I think absolutely, always want to take that magic and try and capture a smidgen of it. But absolutely, and there were some amazing wide chooses that we read that paved the way as well. Jay Bree's Bonds That Tie, Eva Chase's Bound to the Fae, absolutely, these other fantasy wide choose. And I think those were some definitely
The books,
inspirations.
And okay, so if you could describe the characters or the books in tropes, give them to me.
Well, Kel is for sure who did this to you.
Yeah.
Like, that is him to a T.
Ezryn and Rosie are definitely grumpy and sunshine. Cass's villain gets the girl, or villain really tries to get the girl. We're not sure.
Morally gray, too.
Really gray,
yeah,
absolutely. Farron is he's cinnamon roll.
Yeah, you don't see too many cinnamon roll
but
heroes.
I
So it's fun to be able to put him into that slot, because I think that there's like there needs to be more cinnamon roll heroes. I love to read about
do.
that.
I agree. Sometimes it's nice to not be so heavy.
Yes.
Totally. They've got a little bit of friends to lovers too, because
they have a friendship first.
They're always kind of flirtatious, but not really until woven by gold. And Dayton is the one that got away, I guess.
No. 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 Refuse. We're not over that yet. It's too soon. Too soon. Had I not maybe finished this yesterday, like maybe, but too soon. I also see that you guys have a Spotify at the end of the books where you like have a playlist. There's a lot of T Swifts. Can you describe what song fits in with the characters you think?
Ooh,
Well, Rosie is very much enchanted, especially in the first book, where the line is like, "Please don't fall in love with someone else."
Oh yeah.
Totally. Yeah, I think we always say Enchanted is like the sort of the theme song of the series. But yeah, I mean I'm sure that the new album is gonna have
A lot of people
lot
have
of songs
said
before.
that Rosie, they relate to Rosie with the Bolter, that song.
Okay.
And the line about falling into ice, which is a big part of Rosie's backstory.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then I always thought My Tears Ricochet is a very Kel and His Great Love song, which maybe we don't know who that is if you've only read the first book. But
Oh, and I always listen to August when doing Dayton and Farron.
Yeah, that's their
Oh
song.
yeah. That one is, I think, in the playlist if I remember.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
There's
like
a
to
lot,
apply
yeah.
them to
To
as
all
many
the
as we
things.
can.
Yeah. And I know you guys you've said this before, but just in case somebody doesn't know your stories, who, if this could be cast as to a movie or TV show, who are you choosing?
Well, we don't ever cast Rosie. We feel like Rosie, the reader, should cast how they want her.
Yeah. Exactly right.
Yeah.
Cal, we always picture, I know everybody chooses him for their romance hero, but it's gotta be Henry
So
Cavill as
In The Witcher.
in The Witcher.
Very dirty
With the
version.
white hair. Oh,
Yeah,
God.
the white hair, dark brows,
God,
he's like
yes.
a little scruffy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dayton, we didn't have this one originally, but a lot of readers fan cast him as Finnick O'Dare or Sam Claflin, and I'm like, that's really fits.
Yes.
So I really like that
Yeah,
one.
that was one
Yeah.
we didn't have originally, but we sort of held on to after a lot of fans did it.
I like that. Yeah.
This is a controversial one. I always see Andrew Garfield for Farron. People love Farron. I think has like
the most range of fan
yeah,
cast.
fantastic. But I love Andrew Garfield, so that's my Farron.
And then Cass is always Ben Barnes.
I mean,
Barnes.
Ben
The
Barnes,
dark
any
one.
kind of like dark sort of
Yeah.
vibe, it's
With
Ben
long
Barnes.
hair, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then Ez is tough because we don't know his face until Forged by Malice.
Yeah.
So, but but there is a certain actor that I have for him, and I will, and you probably, if you know, you know.
If you know,
if
you
you
know.
know. But I won't say it so as not to do too many spoilers.
Yeah,
but-
DM it to me after.
Yeah.
Just like, this is it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
If you know, you know.
If you know, you know. And to finish this up, I want to do a quick little this and that.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
So, all right. Physical books or ebooks?
Physical books.
I love my ebooks.
I know, I love
but
my
I
ebooks
love
too.
physical books more.
I mean,
know.
yeah, the smell.
Yeah, I love the covers and yeah.
Smut or no smut?
I have to go with smut, but I can enjoy a book without smut. I don't need it. but-
Same. I mean I love that little touch smut, but yeah, I do like books without smut, but I'll go smut.
Romantasy or fantasy romance?
Romance.
Romantasy.
Morally Gray or the Golden Retriever?
Morally gray, though.
I'll go golden retriever just to be different. But it's a tough one.
That was, and this is enemies to lovers or friends to lovers?
Enemies
It's gotta
to
be
lover.
enemies to lovers.
Yeah.
I know people some people hate friends to lovers. I like it too, but gotta go friends. Yeah,
Enemies
gotta
to
go
lovers.
enemies to lovers.
The tension.
Yeah,
It's too good.
it is.
Would you rather go to Renaissance Fest or a book ball?
Oh,
I would love to go to both, but we're going to a book ball coming up in Seattle in the fall. So
and one in Orlando. We're going to.
and one in
The
Orlando.
one in
too.
October?
Yes,
Yeah,
in
yeah, yeah.
October.
Considering that one.
Oh my
Yeah.
god!
Oh
you
my
should
God.
go. It's really fun.
Looks really
Yeah,
fun. So I'm gonna
it
say
looks
book
so
ball.
good.
You know.
Yeah.
I really want to do a Ren fair, but I'm also gonna go with book ball.
Yeah.
because I'm so excited to go.
Would you rather be reading all day or writing all day?
I feel like I haven't had the opportunity recently just to sit down
Down
and
and
read,
read.
Yeah.
like for fun all day because it's deadlines have been crazy. So I'm gonna go for that because I would love a day for that.
would love
my
a day.
TBR is so
Yeah.
long.
I feel like
That's
I write every day anyway, so I'm gonna say read all day because that would be a great break.
Yeah.
Like cozy blanket, you know.
Totally,
Yeah.
yeah.
Love that. Would you rather have a sword or a bow and arrow?
I can go bow and arrow. My D&D character's a ranger, so you know.
Oh, nice.
Always
That was
shoot
it, yeah.
yeah.
I feel like I want like a big hefty sword and
Yeah.
I can just, hack and slash.
Yeah. Okay, this is gonna be tough for you guys. These little
Okay.
next several questions, a little personal.
Okay.
Autumn or summer?
Summer.
Autumn. I love autumn. So
Spring
cozy.
or winter?
Spring.
Winter.
So then the opposite, the autumn with winter.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
we did it wrong.
No, I'm asking like
Good
now
question.
of your two winners, which one?
I think autumn's just got me my favorite season.
Yeah.
It's so crisp and cozy, and I love it.
And I love spring. I love, when you step outside for the first time and it's like, oh, it's warm again.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
even harder. Farron or Dayton?
Dayton.
Farron.
Kel or S?
Kel.
As
Kel or Cass?
Cass.
Cass above all.
Well, that's me. I'm not even like playing. I'm like, oh, he's up here. So
Yeah. He's so how can you not love him? He's sad.
He's sad.
He's
boy.
a sad man. Boy.
And to finish it off, I just want you guys to tell everyone, when can we expect Broken by Daylight? What can we expect in Broken by Daylight?
So Broken by Daylight comes out September 10th worldwide. You can expect, we think this is like a lot of fun action. It's like, this is our most adventure story yet. And it's adventure with a ton of romance and yearning. Think like, I guess, vibes of The Mummy, where like, it's obviously not set in Egypt, but
Yeah.
it's like high adventure, high romance, high fun, big plot points.
Yeah.
What do you got?
Yeah, I think that
Yearning.
yearning is the key word here. There is a lot of action and adventure. We meet some new characters, including Farron and Dayton's little sisters, Delphia and Nori.
A couple you haven't seen kiss. Two
Oh
characters,
yes, a couple.
two new character kisses.
I forgot about that. And we thought this was a more uplifting story than Forged,
Yeah,
but
we're like, oh, everyone's gonna like the ending of this way better.
the beta readers do not agree so far.
Stop!
So-
Hold on, because I'm still pissed about.
So, well, we're not sure how to interpret that.
I'm not ready. I'm not mentally ready. Oh my god.
I think it's uplifting.
I think
Okay.
it's uplifting too, but they disagreed. But maybe they need to
need
sit
to
on it a
process
little
a
bit.
bit.
Yeah, maybe. I'm like getting red too. I'm like, what do you mean?
But I think it's a really fun romantic story.
Yes.
Okay.
It's hard, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And yeah, I think the readers will like this one.
And
Our editor
it feels like summer. It feels hot, and there's
Yes.
sand everywhere, and
Yeah.
and water and salt water
Yeah.
and blaring heat. Like it's gonna feel like summer.
Our editor said this was her favorite book out of the four,
Yeah.
out of the four. So that's really great. So yeah, we think people will like it.
I'm sure. I mean, I've loved every single, even though I'm joking right now about like being so pissed, but like it's still such an amazing, all of them have been amazing books.
So you want as an authors to have a good reaction.
Totally. Yeah.
Someone.
If we make people feel anything, regardless of what that thing is, we've done our jobs.
Yeah. If we feel it.
Yeah.
We feel it. All right, so I'm just gonna. This is it. This was the episode of The Nerd Tea. Thank you guys so much with Elizabeth and Helen, the Beast of the Briar. Thank you guys so much for joining me.
Thank you so
Thank you
much
for
for
having
having
us.
us.
Yay!